person's a weapon. I don't even know how to describe it. Young powerhouse.
I really need to be sure that we're going to do this.
She took down a rap pop superstar.
If I could, probably would have worded that tweet slightly differently.
I cannot believe that passed publishing. That's bad.
This is the show where you are the main cast. You are the star, the poster of
I don't know
this
how
show.
that happened, Angus. The script is pretty intense. Like, I knew straight away that there would be a sex scene and that there would be some nudity, and like that would probably trigger some of my internalized ableism.
It's about that time.
In a minute.
Hi guys, I'm Hannah. Nice to meet you. I am a writer, advocate, actress. That is still so weird to say. And I also run a media company called Missing Perspectives.
Can you give us your full name there, please, so everyone knows?
Yeah,
Hannah, you say your last
my
name.
full name is Hannah Diviney.
There you go. You got to get it out to the
There
world.
we go.
It's like no one says Margot.
No.
They say Margot Robbie.
Ever
right?
since the, she's become an actress, it's now, she's like Prince.
Oh, what? Is she pretty?
Hannah, Hannah
no.
is, that's all. Oh, Hannah? I know exactly who you're talking
Has she
about.
just Oprah'd herself?
She's Oprah'd herself.
Oh, my God.
She's Beyonce'd herself.
I like it.
Yeah, she's just
Yeah, well,
known as one. Madonna of the...
This is one single.
It's an honour to have you on here, Hannah. For people who are asking why it's taken us so long, we have been trying to work out this moment for a long time. We wanted to get you in person. We are doing it virtually today because we couldn't wait any longer. You're an absolute superstar, someone that we've had requested a bunch of times, so it's great to sit down with you and finally hear about your story. And for people who might not know Hannah Diviney, can you tell us what is your disability?
Yep, so I have cerebral palsy. So you can't see at the moment because obviously wheelchairs are hidden on these things, but like Dylan, I am sitting in a wheelchair, have been in one or had my disability since I was born and will have it until I'm an old lady, hopefully. And basically I have the type of cerebral palsy where my legs are the main limbs affected, but my arms are also kind of affected. So in terms of like building muscle or handwriting or being able to like use a knife and fork properly or play a musical instrument, those things are all kind of challenges for me too.
So let's get in the nitty gritty on that just for a minute because our listeners really get interested. When you go to grip a knife and fork, say, when you got cerebral palsy, talk us through the process of what happens to your body, of why those, minute tasks of using your limbs is tough.
So gripping a fork is definitely easier because a fork obviously can do less damage if you do it incorrectly. But basically, whenever I hold something, I will hold it like that. So basically, instead of using my fingers individually and like isolating them correctly, I kind of have to do a whole fist grip because it's only like my thumb and my pointer finger that I can move on their own. If I try and move my other fingers, everybody comes party.
Okay.
Yeah, so with a knife, it's hard to get it in the right spot and then also to have the control to like put it into whatever I'm cutting and then do like the cutting back and forth motion at the same time while holding on.
So when you want to use individual limbs or whatever, because of the spasms, is that right? So they will all contract at once and then it's hard to individually use each muscle group?
Yeah, that is kind of what happens, but it's also just that my motor control and like my ability to do things in kind of small measured movements doesn't really work.
Okay.
I'm better at the big stuff.
Cool.
Okay.
I like that. Big stuff is what matters. So good job.
Yeah.
Can you, Hannah, just while we're talking about sort of the motor function of what you're, within the capabilities, is there some sort of accessibility tool that I wouldn't know that is there like a toothbrush that allows you to brush your teeth that's, that's I wouldn't have seen before or something like that?
So for brushing my teeth, I just use an electric toothbrush because all you have to do is hold it and basically just guide it around your teeth.
Instead of back and forth with the hand.
a cutlery set that has like little grooves in it, which basically tells you like where to put your fingers so that it's easier to hold on to. Do I use it as much as I should, Angus? No, I do not. But I do have it.
Okay. Hopefully you're brushing your teeth though.
Just gotta get a spork. Spoon fork.
Yeah, that's
Love
right.
a good spork.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also imagine your cutlery set looks like back in the 90s where I grew up. Shane Warne.
You were like 30 years older than us.
Oh, come on. Shane Warne had a cricket ball, a plastic cricket ball.
Spin whiz.
Yeah, and it had his fingerprints on it, and that's
exactly what it's like.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's my layman
whiz,
way
what
of
it was called, and you could bowl
something like that. Yeah, it's yellow with his red fingered points on it.
Hey, Han, you obviously are a role model, advocate, all that stuff these days, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But before we do, can you talk a little bit about growing up? Because you don't catch cerebral palsy, you've always had it your whole life. So what was it like for you coming to terms with your body, you as a person, and your disability?
That was a long, long process, and it's still ongoing. I don't think it will ever really go away. But for me, I first noticed I was different when I was like 3, I think. So I was having lunch at daycare, and my best friend at the time finished her lunch ahead of me and then stood up and went to go play. And I was like, cool, I'm obviously going to go and do the same thing, right? Because that's what you do. And I remember kind of looking down at my legs and being like, I'm telling my brain to stand up, but nothing is happening. Like the chair's not moving. Nothing's happening. Like I'm not bending and flexing my knees like I've seen people do. Actually, I probably wasn't even putting that much thought into the movement back then. And I was like, that's weird. Nothing's happening. But even though I was really confused, something in my brain told me like not to talk about it with the other kids yet, not to cry, not to do any of that stuff, just wait, get home, ask mum and dad, and then see. Because I was also the kind of kid who whenever I didn't understand something, I just asked a question. I was that kid in a sitcom who just adds, but why? At the end of every sentence. So, yeah, I came home, I asked mum and dad, I was like, why can't I stand up? Why am I different? And I think for them it was a bit too early for their liking. Like they would have liked, I guess, at least maybe another year or two. They kind of hoped that it would be when I got to school that I started noticing, but they kind of forgot that I'm a sponge who absorbs everything and always.
When I was 3, I was eating crayons. Oh. Yeah, so I'm impressed.
Well, yeah, no, I'm sure I still went through a crayon.
Okay, just checking. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
What about that process going to school? Because that's where I've probably first started to struggle personally.
Yeah, going to school was really hard. Because I think I was 5 the first time I got a wheelchair, so I was learning like how to use that. Didn't really know what I was doing. Figuring out that like obviously if you want to stop moving, you have to put the brakes on and all that kind of stuff. And I think for a while there, the kids at my school, they thought it was hilarious. Like their favorite game was, quick, Hannah's coming, run away, and then like waiting for me to catch them. But obviously because of cerebral palsy and because of how much effort it takes, I could never catch them. So what was hilarious to them actually ended up being quite hurtful to little me. But yeah, basically I spent most of my childhood being like, ugh, this is being different and I don't like it. And also, like, much like you, Dylan, I didn't grow up seeing anyone who looked like me. Pretty much the only time I ever saw people who looked like me was in therapy settings or at like disability specific events, or maybe like Kurt at the Paralympics. But back then obviously we didn't have as much Paralympics coverage as we do now. And then like the two narratives were Paralympic success, or like you've talked about this at length before, but the road safety ads, and that was it.
This is a question for both of you. My today is the first day that my niece Zeffie's going into prep. So she's starting down at Torquay Primary School.
Shout out.
And I wonder, a lot of education as a kid, like you said, we're sponges, right? Our most formative years of learning are when we're learning. We don't have a choice to learn. We're learning about environments around us. Do you think that there should be education in schools about disability to help normalise it? Obviously, this podcast is something, but it's not compulsory. And should it be compulsory for, even if they don't have someone in their class specifically, let's say Hannah's not in class or Dylan's not in class, but just so that all kids are a bit more aware of people with disability so that they can be a bit more kind, especially in formative years, like, to look at the example that you just gave about, the game of Chasey, which they probably thought hilarious, but obviously you still hold some sort of, trauma to that.
You kick yourself, Han. You go.
I think that would be helpful. It would just have to be done in a really kind of delicate, informed way, because obviously, like, if it were able-bodied people teaching you about it, I'm not sure how it would go. I think you'd need...
Yeah, like a textbook written by people with lived experience, sure, but the speak pipe of that person most likely will be able-bodied, and does that sort of fit in the criteria of normalising?
Yeah, well, I talk about this a bit, and I'll ask you, Angus, in 13 years of school, how many minutes of disability education did you do?
Well, to be fair, I did do a tiny little bit. Remember, I did that. I got a certificate from.
Oh yeah, you actually did.
But I said to Dylan, I'm like, the one thing I remember was they said crouch down to people with wheelchair. And Dylan's like, that's not how. Not everyone with the wheelchair needs to be crouched down next to so that you're eye level with them. You can just ask.
So I did 0 minutes.
Yeah.
And if we had even just 1 hour once a year, and educated my mates about why me and Hannah take a bit longer to get around, or why we're a bit longer in the bathroom, whatever, would have changed my life. We've got a consulting firm called GSA where we do education and training and cultural reviews for government and corporate. But in Victoria, we've just made content made by people with disability to be played to teachers in schools and students, right? How that is not in the... And I actually did a talk last year to like 900 headmasters, principals and school owners. I'm like, are you teaching disability yet? They're like, no. And I'm like, I learned so much, part of my friend's shit, that I never used again at school. Would you use that in your life? Of course you would, right? But Hannah nailed it. It has to be made and delivered by people with disability, because you can't expect some absolutely awesomely lovely able-bodied 24-year-old teacher to be the gospel on disability to kids. It's not fair on them either. No. You know what I mean? So I think that plays a massive role.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to have this like dream scenario where someone would decide at school that like everyone needed to live a day in my shoes, and they'd all have to like go around in wheelchairs and would only be allowed to do things the way I did them.
I like that.
Yeah,
that was
to get
like
some
my
perspective.
fantasy as a kid for being like, please understand.
Yeah. All right. Enough of this crap advocacy stuff. All right. Let's talk about bloody the weapon that is Hannah. What do you reckon?
Well, there's a moment that, if people didn't already know your name.
Yes.
The moment might be in June of 2022. Let's go back.
It might be in June of 2022, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. Less than a year ago, you sent a tweet out to Lizzo. Now, Lizzo, of course, being I would say like, she's an incredible pop star in her own right, but...
Can I ask you a question? Because I don't know this.
Yeah.
How much of a song can we play right now without getting in trouble?
Well, what part of the song do you want to play? Or just any sort of song to reference
Just to
Lizzo?
reference Lizzo.
Let's play a little bit. Let's see if we get
Ready?
in trouble.
It's about that time.
In a minute.
So if we get in trouble, this is for you, Lizzo. If we didn't get in trouble, you heard Lizzo. If we did get in trouble, you heard us.
Yeah,
all right?
That's right.
There you go.
But of course, Lizzo, you tweeted, "Hey at Lizzo, my disability cerebral palsy is literally classified as spastic diplegia." Now, this is in response to her using the word spaz in the song Girls. Where spasticity refers to the unending pain tightness in my legs. Your new song makes me pretty angry and sad. Spaz doesn't mean freaked out or crazy. It's an ableist slur. It's 2022. Do better. Now, I'm not going to tell the rest of the story. Would you like to say what happened from that tweet on?
So basically that tweet took me less than 5 minutes to compose. I sent it off and then the internet melted. I started getting notifications so fast that I had to turn the sound off on my Twitter because it was driving me insane.
Angus, that's why Angus says that about his Instagram all the time.
No, that's not true. I did once give away Justin Bieber meet and greets when I was on radio once, and I had to do the same thing.
That would do
turn
it.
off notifications.
That would do it.
We had one. It was the third biggest hashtag in Australia. It was 1.1 million tweets.
Well, that's pretty much like you had.
But but also not as important as your tweet. Not even close.
Yours is much more relevant.
Yeah.
Some people would say your radio show was very important.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's right. Well, to the one person who won the meet and greet, it was.
Me included. I used to listen quite regularly.
Oh, thanks, Anna.
But yeah, basically I sent that off and then was like, my phone is doing a weird thing. And then it wasn't until I actually started getting negative reactions that I went, oh, this might be a little bit bigger than me. And it started being shared in kind of mind-boggling numbers. And then it dawned on me that there was a high possibility that someone in Lizzo's team would probably be made aware of it. And then I was like, oh no, what do I do? Because I have to admit, my expectation was that in calling her out like that, that she might not react so well. We've all seen those celebrity sort of apologies where they're like, I'm not apologizing, you just misinterpreted it. That's not what I meant. Get over it. Grow up. Whatever. And obviously, I was hoping, based on the fact that Lizzo is representative of multiple marginalized communities herself and occupies, really important space in the music industry in, going against the norm, that wouldn't be the case. But I didn't know for sure. I also, if I could, probably would have worded that tweet slightly differently because...
Why? In what way?
In some... For some people, freaked out and crazy also qualify as ableist slurs, and I didn't necessarily think that all the way through, because I think there's only so much that you can know about disability from your own experience, and I'm happy for other people to teach me and to call me out and to educate me, but I'm also I don't know if this happens to you, Dylan, but sometimes people ask me questions and I'm like, well, I don't know, that's not my experience, so I can't answer that.
100%. It's like people all right, I want to hire someone who's neurodiverse in my workplace. What do? I said, don't ask me. Ask someone who's neurodiverse. You know what I mean? Because I'm serious. Yeah. You're not the gospel of all disability. And even with slurs, another one, I sometimes say the word lame, that's lame, as in not cool. Right? And then lame is actually used to describe someone like me. My legs are lame. But I'm cool with that. I don't care, right? But other people might. So you got to understand it's fair enough. There's nuance to it.
Different people have different experiences.
Yeah. If Angus said to me, that's a lame cut off skivvy you're wearing, which it is, I'm not going to be like, how dare you? But someone else might. So you got to really cater for everyone. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that people still need to get on board with is that whenever someone's speaking from within the disabled community, we're never trying to speak for all of us. But yeah, so basically I sent that, and then a couple of days later, a friend sent me an all caps message on Instagram that was like, she's changing it, look at her Instagram, she's making a statement, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, so what? What's going on? So then I go to Lizzo's Instagram and I see that wonderful statement that she put out on her feed, which I thought was really interesting as well, because she obviously made that so that it was public and will be there forever, and didn't do it through her.
I was going to say there's a lot of people
herself.
apologise on stories. I saw, if there's any controversy, they'll apologise for, whether it's
20 hours
being busted with drug abuse or something like that. All of that stuff. It's my apologies. Or there's a breakup story and it's just there for 24 hours, and then that's their way of going, oh God, I've addressed it. But for her to leave that on there and it's still there is powerful.
Did she reach out to you?
No, she didn't. But that's
guess what?
Okay.
Guess what?
That's not.
Guess what?
That's not what I did it for.
Well, guess what? Please welcome Lizzo. Nah, she's not here. Just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Dylan. It's all good.
I thought that was funny. What did she change the word to in the song?
She changed it. I think she just changed it to like "hold me back" and then just cut out the rest of the sentence.
My most hated / favorite one of these because of how loose it was the Black Eyed Peas. Originally wasn't "Let's Get It Started."
Yeah.
It was
I know
"Let's
what
Get
you're
It
gonna
Something
say.
Else," right?
R word,
Even
yeah.
when I was 13, I thought that's loose.
Yeah.
If that happened now, like, I cannot believe that passed publishing. Like, that's bad, right? And they've still got it. They've still got both versions sometimes. I was like, get rid of that one. Like, what are you doing? Oh, God.
Yeah. Like Lizzo showed you how easy it is to get rid of versions.
I just can't believe that got up.
Like 2 days, maybe 3 days.
We'll get on to Beyonce as well because a very similar story about the lyrics in her song came through. But can I entertain you with some old radio stories about
here we
lyric
go.
changes?
Yep, here we go.
You can go for it.
Well, Major Lazer had probably one of the biggest songs of the year, which was
Major Lazer.
Lean On.
Yep.
And the original lyrics of the song were blow a kiss, fire a gun, we all need somebody to lean on. And then a horrific mass shooting went down, and then my old mate Ego sent an email to Diplo. They had to pull the song and said he sent an email to Diplo to his label saying, "Hey, look, we can't play this for this reason." Diplo replied
No way.
to Ego, got with Mo, the singer, and now the lyrics when you click lean on is blow a kiss into the sun. We all need somebody to lean on.
Well, that's cool.
And then another quick one is Ellie Goulding had a huge song called Burn. And we gotta let it burn, burn, burn.
Good
It happened during like Black Friday. It was released, and so all radio stations pulled that as it was on the way to #1. So, but my point to this is, if it affects radio play, or it's going to affect, and not necessarily, Ellie Goulding or Diplo did that for these reasons, but it's funny that. For some reasons, if it's going to affect their airplay on radio or maybe monetization, they'll quickly make a change.
I reckon
but it's funny when someone gets pulled up on an ableist slur that they're more likely, or sometimes will be like, it's affecting a small amount of people.
Yeah.
Not everyone cares, and radio stations are still probably playing it.
You nailed it. That she genuinely like, oh, that's wrong. I want to change that, which I thought was pretty cool.
And it's a quick turnaround
And you did
as well.
that, Hannah. That's pretty gangster.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, there were other disability advocates involved. It wasn't just me. I think it was a community-wide effort, but based on what happened to my Twitter, I feel like I could safely assume that my tweet was one of the ones she saw.
Yeah, definitely.
That involved that decision.
So how did it affect you? I mean, obviously, it must have been a great, even though you had those negative tweets coming through, hopefully you could see the light of the positivity being 95% of that. And then to see that change, that would have, I imagine you would have just felt this euphoria at such an incredible moment in music and for the disability community and for Lizzo, to address that so well. And then fast forward, like, are we talking like a couple of months, weeks?
6 weeks.
6 weeks after Beyonce drops her new album, and there in one of her songs is the word spaz. Twice. How did you then feel about that? Because I know you addressed that again online.
I laughed a lot because I was just like, did you miss the whole thing that just happened like 6 weeks ago? Like, don't you have people on your team that are supposed to keep an eye on these things? And also, like, it's not like the Lizzo thing happened in a vacuum. It made big international headlines. Like, I ended up with an interview request from the New York Times, which was like, sorry, what? You want me to do what now? Like, huh? The most influential newspaper in the world. But basically, yeah, I found out because someone on Twitter, I think they were trying to be snarky, was like, well, are you going to call out Beyonce now too? And I went and listened to the song, kind of hit my head against a brick wall, and then went, guess I'm doing this again. But obviously, like with Beyonce, there were some added things to consider, I think, in that, like, her fan base and place in the music industry is different to Lizzo's. Like, she inspires a level of like passion in her fans that is quite intense. And Angus, you will have had experience with these.
Yeah. Fan bases or fandoms are
arms of fandom, and all of that kind of thing. And as well, like, Lizzo markets herself to be more approachable, I guess, whereas Beyonce very much has like an air of mystery, and I'm an enigma, and I only interact with the world on my terms. So even when that went out, like, the idea that she would change it felt very unreachable. And then I woke up like maybe 24, 48 hours later, and my phone was ringing off the hook because Beyonce has put out a statement through her reps that she's changing it.
Great.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It is wild, though, that one got through the keeper. For Lizzo, I mean, there's so many different factors of how they got through writing process, through production process, through mastering, through label, through PR to get released. But then, Beyonce felt weird because, I mean, and it's happened before. I mean, 4 or 5 seconds, the song with Paul McCartney, Rihanna, and Kanye West still says that word in the lyric, hold me back, I'm gonna... It hasn't been changed.
No, it hasn't.
And like, so this is a reoccurring model that big profile artists are making the mistake and being just the fact that Beyonce 6 weeks after that.
Yeah.
How does someone not make her aware that it slips through?
Well, it's because that's why we need more Hannahs in the world, because there are gay and lesbian advocates, there are non-binary advocates, there are different race and religion advocates, but there hasn't been enough disabled advocates for people to realise those words are wrong. You know what I mean? So that ableist terms, and I think the more and more people know. I think also the Beyonce one was funny, and correct me if I'm wrong, Han, but like, she has done a bit for black women with disability as well, Beyonce.
Yes.
Like, she had done stuff. So I actually saw some pushback from disabled people as well, going, hang on, who are they? Like, but then for even Beyonce to own it rather than fall back and hide behind those people defending her, she was like, nah, I have stuffed that up. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think it's the best way to move forward from stuff like that, is to be like, hey, I made a mistake. I'm really sorry that I did that. Here's what I'm going to do about it. And like,
you're going to get yourself in the songs, Any Danger? Little collaboration and sing with Beyonce?
I mean, if she asked me, I wouldn't say no.
Here you go, audition right now. Give us a little bit of Beyonce. Go on. Sing me one line. Don't miss your chance. This could be your chance. Go on.
I am not doing that.
Okay, Beyonce's a big fan of the show. So is Jigga Man, Jay-Z. They listen to every ListenABLE episode.
No.
Can I put a little devil's advocate out there just before we move on from this?
Oh, this is what you do best, mate.
People wouldn't have been aware that Spaz is a ableist slur had Lizzo not put and Beyonce not put them in the songs to then change. If the lyrics were as they are now recorded, without that terminology, people wouldn't
have
understand.
The education that we do.
Exactly. A lot of more mainstream people, because they've got such huge fan bases. I mean, it's Beyonce, wouldn't know that is. So they might have learned something from their mistake. Is there some sort of, apart from the positive is that they've learned and changed, but in doing so, I guess more people have learned, right?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a big positive that I started taking from the situation, was all of these people messaging me saying things along the lines of, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was a slur, but I'm going to like not use that word anymore, or next time I hear my friends use it, I'll pull them up on it, or whatever. And I think obviously I would have preferred that they didn't use the slur in the first place, but given that they did, that's probably like the best possible outcome in terms of like mass education.
Everybody deserves that second chance. If Lizzo makes a new song called What Up Spaz, you're in the bin.
Yeah.
But I believe that, because the best learnings are done when conversations like this happen, and that's why I very rarely give people a whack online unless it really means something, because like you try and call in first, obviously you can't get to Lizzo on that, and so you did the right thing. But like, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, that's wrong. Oh, yeah. And if they go, no, it's not wrong, you go, all right, well now you got to learn. And then it's a good learning piece for everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
From the music industry to the TV industry, let's chat about Viceland on SBS and, of course, the TV show Latecomers. This is the show where you are the main cast. You are the star. the poster of
I don't know
this
how
show.
that happened, Angus. I'm not an actor.
I watched it all episodes. You're fantastic in it.
Thank you very much.
As somebody who tries to learn about disability, this podcast has been an incredible platform, but I still try and learn and educate myself away from this.
I thought you were about to say, as someone who's been trying to learn acting, and I was like, are you going to do some acting?
I did acting classes as a child.
No, I thought you were about to say that.
I had a big part on Neighbours, remember?
Oh, that was huge.
that's
Stingray's
right.
best friend.
Stingray's best friend. That's right.
Yeah.
God, that's good.
But I do try and educate myself. I did an Expressions Australia deaf course before Christmas here at the studios, and so I'm always learning. And I learned something from this show, which I loved.
Uh-oh.
No, nothing in particular. I just loved watching the interaction of the character that you play. Perfectly portrayed, which has cerebral palsy. You're playing, obviously a character, but the disability is the same in the show. Can you talk to us about the opportunity of Latecomers? How did it come to you, and how did you receive the opportunity? Were you forthcoming straight away? Did you read the script, see that you were going to be nude? Did you have apprehension?
Yeah, so basically the opportunity came about completely by accident. I tend to get lots of emails from interesting people because of my advocacy, and generally because I'm pretty loud on Instagram and Twitter about being a disabled person and about sharing what that looks like. And I got an email from a producer who was working with SBS on the show, basically saying, we've seen your Instagram. This is the show we're creating. The creators have cerebral palsy. The characters have cerebral palsy. Like, could you just come and read the script that we've got so far? Because basically these guys have been staring at these words for months on their laptops, and we just need people to come and read so that they can actually hear like what's working and what's not working. And also we'd like your kind of input on the character and whether we're doing it right, because the more consultation we have with the disabled community, the more we're likely to get it right and to kind of stick the landing, so to speak. So yeah, I was like, cool, I'll go and read this script for a TV show, and that will be cool because like then months from now when the show comes out and I'm watching it with my family, I can say, oh, I got to play that character for a day, how cool. And then at the end of the read, our director and the head of casting both came up to me and they were like, you're auditioning for the show. And they phrased it as a statement, not a question. And I went, okay. And they're like, you can act. And I was like, I can. Like, don't get me wrong. I'd been a drama kid. Generally, if there was a stage, I could be found on or near it as a kid. I think I liked the idea that when I was performing in some ways, I could control how people were looking at me. Whereas in my everyday life, people were looking at me, staring, thinking whatever they were going to think.
Hang on. One thing doing drama at school, another thing, cameras, acting proper in a big show. How'd you handle it?
It was a lot. It was a lot. And I mean, as you said, Angus, the script is pretty intense. Like, I knew straight away that there would be a sex scene and that there would be some nudity and like loads of stuff that would probably trigger some of my internalized ableism and like things that I've unfortunately I'm still kind of learning to unlearn about myself. So in that sense, I was actually quite hesitant to take on the role. And as like the auditions got closer and kind of the field of actresses got smaller, there was a particular moment in the scripts that I was really quite nervous about. And it actually wasn't, well, it was the sex scene, but there was also another moment. There's basically some dialogue between my character, Sarah, and Angus Thompson's character, Frank, where he... Actually, before I say this, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, where he goes and calls her unfuckable, basically. And, like, says that, well, if you're not going to be with me, like, as another disabled person, then, like, who are we going to be with? What? what are we going to do, blah blah blah. And that was very confronting for me, because I don't know if this happened to you, Dylan, but for me, when I got to the age where people started talking about relationships and partners and all of those things, it was very much assumed and regularly like said to my face by friends and by other people that obviously my partner was going to need to be disabled.
For sure. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, which is...
So the implied thing that you were unlovable by someone who was able-bodied, that you would have to, be within your own pool of disability.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a pretty dramatic scene, by the way, and Angus does an incredible job as the other actor with cerebral palsy in this show as well.
He's an incredible actor, and I was really lucky to work with him. But basically, they kind of said, "Oh, well, that's a shame. Like, if you want to pull out, because we really want you." And I kind of went,
Can I tell me to piss off? But if you don't want to answer it, as always, we can chop anything out. Had you had much sexual experience before this? Had you done much kissing? What was your lead in?
So I was
I know the answer to this. That's what I was asking. So go for it. Yeah.
No, but I was like, oh my God, the first time I do any of this stuff, it's going to be fake, but it's going to have to look like it's real. And like...
That's hard. That's hard. Your first kiss, first sex is on TV. That's hard. Look at you big smile though. You look happy as these days. Look at you.
Well, I think partially like what makes that stuff so safe now is they have intimacy coordinators on set who are basically, for want of a better phrase, like choreographing what you do. So they tell you like where to put your hands, how to move your head, what noises to make, all of those kind of things.
Well, you've been labelled, I've got it in big black here, Hannah is labelled the first person to have a sex scene. Obviously, you haven't seen my OnlyFans. Big Daddy D. However, that's that. I mean, I can't. I'm trying to think of someone in our situation having a sex scene on TV. I can't think.
You can't think of it?
Just say it is you. How does that make you feel? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. Realizing that it was me and being like, oh, that's a piece of history I get to own forever, which is also cool. But like, man, like that's going to be something that like my future children and my future grandchildren and all of that have to see. And it's like, I really need to be sure that we're gonna do this. But I think for me, the pull of the representation was just too great, and that's what convinced me to do the part. In the end, was basically the idea that like I've spent my whole life looking for representation and not seeing it, and now I get this opportunity.
Yeah.
You get to be the representation for the next generation of people who have something. It turns out
the representation was the face in the mirror, so...
That's brilliant. We're also going to put a link just below so people can click on it. It's free to watch. You just have to sign up with an SBS account. Definitely worth it. And also, definitely worth watching with other people to get that sort of idea of the relationship, because it is so perfectly portrayed. And I won't give away what... It's so bad.
Don't give it away.
Well, I'm not going to say, but is it bad that I thought that it was sort of a twist about what happens in the relationship?
No,
is that ableist?
That's how it was intended.
Okay.
We all got very excited when like the reaction was, we didn't see that coming. We're like, oh, thank God.
The twist is Hannah just gets up and walks off.
Yeah.
That's the twist.
Yeah. The
Hannah's not disabled.
The twist is that I've been faking all along.
Faking it. That's the twist.
This is just a long con.
Don't even bother watching it. Hannah's actually not disabled. Anyway, great guess. See you later. Yeah.
Bye.
But yes, it is definitely worth watching. It's a great storyline as well, and Hannah, you do an incredible job in the character. So yes, the link is just below if anyone should watch it.
And I will say that in doing that, like, much of how we framed certain things without giving stuff away was inspired by the visibility that you and Chantel have created.
That's very nice. That
nice.
Wasn't planned at all either. That's beautiful words. Thank you. I'll make sure she hears that. That's a beautiful thing to say, Han.
That is actually, I actually didn't even think about that because it is true.
Well, where was my role? Where was my casting role? Tell your
I know.
producers. All right.
Well, it is about
We have to
normalizing
get you in
relationships, all
We have
relationships.
to get you in season 2 if it happens.
Well, I've been
Dylan.
doing some acting lessons. There's a scoop. So
Yeah.
we could be ready.
Yeah.
Hey, Han, you've been extremely gracious with your time. We really appreciate it. Before we let you go, we do a little thing called the Bowl of Uncomfortable, where people send in questions that they would be too scared to ask you up on the street or if they were your friend. And we go from there. We've got 2 juicy ones. I'm going to go first because Angus is a ripper. All right, mine is from Sarah, coincidentally, who your character's name was, from Instagram. Have you ever been the source of media that you felt was more of a novelty for a TV program, radio, or whatever it is for bonus disability points rather than the message itself? If so, were you offended by that, or were you just happy to be there with a platform to speak?
That's a really interesting question.
It's not mine, it's Sarah's. Got to give her credit.
No, because I think it's not an uncommon experience for me to go into a room, any room really, but particularly in the media, and kind of do a mental check and notice that I am, at least as far as I know, the only visibly disabled person in the room. It doesn't mean that I am, because there are such things as invisible disabilities, and people obviously don't have to disclose that and can pass and do all of those things. But for me, I often go, oh, well, I'm the only disabled person in the room. Was this just about them ticking a box? Do they actually mean what they say? Like, how does it work if the only kind of 5 publicly facing disability advocates you see are all the same people all the time? Like, we've talked about this before, Dylan, but sometimes I go, there are other disabled people you can ask. Like, thank you for asking me.
So
but like,
do I. I'm like,
come on.
I'm sick of myself. I'm sure everyone else is too.
Try a little bit harder, please.
Yeah.
So.
But in saying that, I'm just going to add to that. It's a real interesting question, because the tokenness of being there, right, you can complain about, but I'd rather that than not being there at all.
Yeah,
and then you
absolutely.
convert the tokenism of it into actual learning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
People might differ. This is my disability opinion, but like, I'm there for that. But then guess what? They're going to realize I'm not just there for that.
Yeah.
And they go, you know what I mean? So you got to get that in first, and the in is all you need, and then you convert it. Yeah.
And especially if I'm speaking in those rooms, it's one of the first things I point out, and then you see everyone just go, oh. But probably like the most intersectional room I've been in, you mentioned it earlier, Dylan, was the Marie Claire Women of the Year Awards. Like, there were so many disabled women who got honoured with those awards, but not just disability. It was just like, this is what the face of Australian women looks like, and guess what? It's diverse.
Yeah. And did you win one of those?
Yes.
Just reminding everyone, so on the cover, looking good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did. Presented by your lovely girlfriend.
It was presented by Shanti. Yeah. It was rigged. Nah, it wasn't.
no, it was.
It wasn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Our next question comes from Lee in our DMs on Instagram. Thanks, Lee_T_Socks2. Does your disability affect how you deal with your period and what products you use? Are all period products accessible to you, or does the packaging or how you use them make them inaccessible?
So I tend to try and skip my period. So I have a thing in my arm, it's called an implanon, that is basically supposed to mean that I don't get a period, because when I do, they are normally quite intense. And obviously, like, it's not a situation where I can take care of that myself. So having another person do that is sometimes a bit confronting for both me and them. And it's also just like dealing with period pain on top of like the just general pain that I experience is kind of another layer that I don't need. But yeah, I think probably the most inaccessible period product would be a tampon, which sounds ridiculous, but because I can't, like, I don't have the motor control, and also because my adductors, which are the muscles that run along the inside of your
real tight
leg and groin, are really, 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 really tight.
So am I from sitting all the time. Put your legs together really tightly right now if you're listening. Put them together. Imagine just being locked in that position forever. See how that tight they would get? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so a tampon is a bridge I cannot cross.
Fair enough.
No, makes
Hannah,
sense.
you are a bloody legend. I got to say, we forgot to mention
you.
the editor-in-chief of Missing Perspectives.
Yeah, missingperspectives.com.
Yeah, which is challenging underrepresentation of young women in the news industry. We didn't even get to that. You also got a petition to get a Disney princess with a disability through Disney Studios. Reese Witherspoon has supported. You got over how many signatures you got these days on that petition?
Like 63,000.
It says online
something.
70,000, so let's round up. Love that. There's so many things we didn't get to, but make sure everybody goes check out your Instagram because you're a bloody
right.
superstar.
At Hannah the Wildflower. We will make everything easy. The link to Latecomers below, the link to missingperspectives.com below, the link to your Instagram is below. Make sure you go follow, support, and do not miss a moment of this incredible woman. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been
Thank
too
you for
long,
having me, guys.
but it also feels so right to launch 2023 in studio with you.
Yay.
Good on you, Hannah, and just
Thanks, Hannah.
calm down a bit, all right? Leave some jobs for me. All right? All right, don't...
Leave some jobs
just
for me, he says.
Wow.
your jets,
Wow.
all right? You're getting pretty good.